Without promotion, without a schedule, is Bang Si-hyuk really losing control over the Jungkook effect? Can a single Instagram story, uploaded without warning, without a caption, without a full face reveal, and without any official backing, expose a silent shift of power inside the global music industry? And when that story belongs to Jungkook, does it quietly signal that even the most carefully built entertainment empire can no longer fully contain the force of one individual artist? On the evening of December 13th, 2025, local time, there was no press alert circulating among journalists, no teaser rolling out across official channels, and no carefully crafted promotional language from HYB. There was only a moment, a brief one, a single Instagram story uploaded by Jungkook, and yet, within minutes, the internet reacted as if a major announcement had just been made. No schedule. No context. No explanation. Jungkook appeared casually, partially hidden behind a white mask, his long black hair falling loosely across his face, silver earrings visible, eyes calm and expressive. The background suggested nothing dramatic, just the dim interior of a car, a fleeting slice of everyday life. It was simple, almost insignificant, and that was precisely why it became explosive. The story was quickly reposted by major fanbase accounts, including at charts_K on X, formerly known as Twitter. With nothing more than the words Jungkook Instagram story, the repost ignited a digital wildfire. Tens of thousands of likes appeared in rapid succession. Reposts multiplied. Views surged past hundreds of thousands, all triggered by a post that, by traditional industry standards, should not have mattered at all. But Jungkook is no longer operating within traditional standards. Fan reactions poured in, not merely as excitement, but as emotional release. "This is the best December ever," one fan wrote. Another admitted they never expected Jungkook to appear that day at all. Some laughed, some cried, some simply typed in capital letters, as if volume could capture the intensity of what they felt. The language varied, but the sentiment was unified. Jungkook's presence alone was enough to shift the emotional atmosphere of an entire fandom. This reaction forces a difficult question into the spotlight. When an artist can create this level of global impact without promotion, without planning, and without even showing his full face, who is really in control? For years, the K-pop industry has been synonymous with precision. Appearances are planned months in advance. Social media posts are coordinated with releases, campaigns, and narratives. Silence is strategic. Presence is calculated. Yet Jungkook's story ignored all of that. It did not sell anything. It did not promise anything. It simply existed. And in doing so, it challenged the very foundation of how power functions in idol culture. Since debuting in 2013 as the youngest member of BTS, Jungkook has been framed as the Golden Magne, a title earned through skill rather than branding. Vocals, dance, performance, adaptability, his talents have always spoken loudly. Yet despite his global visibility, Jungkook has rarely behaved like someone chasing dominance. He has never needed to. This is why the December Instagram story felt different. It was not an attempt to reclaim attention. It was a reminder that his attention is always there, waiting, regardless of his silence. Fans quickly began to speculate. Was this moment accidental or intentional? Was Jungkook simply sharing a quiet fragment of his day? Or was he unconsciously demonstrating how little effort he now needs to command global focus? More importantly, what does this mean for the people and systems behind him? At the center of that question stands Bang Si-hyuk, the producer and executive long associated with strategic vision, long-term planning, and narrative control. Bang Si-hyuk has repeatedly emphasized authenticity and artist well-being, often positioning himself as a leader who understands that idols must eventually grow beyond rigid frameworks. Yet even within that philosophy, moments like this test the limits of foresight, because when an artist no longer requires structure to generate impact, structure itself begins to feel optional. Some fans interpret this as the ultimate success story. Jungkook, they argue, has reached a level of cultural authority where he no longer needs guidance. He has outgrown the need for scheduling, branding, and orchestration. Others view it more cautiously. questioning whether this level of individual power could complicate group dynamics or challenge the balance that has defined BTS for over a decade. Still, the emotional tone of the response tells its own story. Fans did not ask for explanations. They did not demand announcements. They were simply grateful. Grateful for presence. Grateful for reassurance. Grateful for a quiet sign that Jungkook was there. In an era where visibility is often forced, Jungkook's restraint has become his most powerful tool. His absence creates longing. His return, no matter how small, feels monumental. That dynamic cannot be engineered. It can only emerge naturally over time. This is why the phrase "losing control" feels both dramatic and misleading. Control suggests resistance, tension, conflict. What appears to be happening instead is evolution. Jungkook is not rebelling against HYB. He is transcending the need for constant mediation. The system did not fail. It succeeded too well. Si-hyuk may not be losing control so much as witnessing the inevitable result of nurturing an artist to full maturity. Pride and concern can coexist. Satisfaction and uncertainty often do. The December story also arrives at a moment of heightened sensitivity. With BTS members navigating solo paths and post-military transitions, every signal is scrutinized. Fans are eager for hints about 2026, about reunions, about the future. Jungkook offered none of that. And yet, speculation exploded anyway. Perhaps that is the clearest sign of his current position. He does not need to speak for narratives to form around him. Silence has become a language of its own. RM once said that loving others begins with loving oneself. In Jungkook's recent behavior, that philosophy feels quietly present. He does not perform connection. He allows it. He does not manufacture intimacy. He permits fans to find meaning in the smallest gestures. As the Instagram story disappeared, as all stories inevitably do, its emotional residue remained. It left behind questions that cannot be easily dismissed. Is this the blueprint for the next generation of global idols? Is Jungkook redefining what autonomy looks like in K-pop? And how will agencies adapt when their most powerful artists no longer need constant direction? One thing is certain. This was never just about a selfie. It was about power without force, influence without noise, presence without promotion, and somewhere within that quiet digital moment lies a truth the industry can no longer ignore. Jungkook does not need the system to move the world. The system now moves around him. And that reality leads to a deeper, more uncomfortable question that industry observers rarely voice out loud. What happens when an idol's personal gravity begins to rival, or even exceed, the institutional gravity of the company behind him? For years, the narrative surrounding BTS has been inseparable from the narrative of structure, planning, and vision. HYB was often praised not just for marketing power, but for long-term storytelling, for patience, for restraint. BTS did not explode overnight. They ascended through carefully built trust, consistent output, and emotional authenticity. Jungkook was shaped within that ecosystem, protected by it, guided by it. Yet moments like this Instagram story suggest that he has reached a phase where guidance no longer defines direction. This is not rebellion. It is not defiance. It is something far more subtle and far more powerful. Inevitability. When fans reacted to Jungkook's appearance, they did not treat it as content. They treated it as presence. That distinction matters. Content is consumed, rated, compared, and eventually replaced. Presence is felt. It lingers. It reshapes emotional landscapes without asking permission. That is why the response felt disproportionate to the action. A single story became a global event not because of what Jungkook did, but because of who he has become. And traditional idol management. Visibility is currency. The more you appear, the more relevant you remain. Jungkook quietly breaks that rule. His long silences do not weaken his influence. They amplify it. Absence has become part of his language. When he returns, even briefly, the impact multiplies. For Si-hyuk, this moment likely represents a crossroads that every visionary leader eventually faces. At what point does stewardship end and autonomy begin? At what point does control transform into trust? Bang Si-hyuk has often been described as a producer who thinks in decades, not quarters. He has spoken about artists needing room to breathe, to fail, to grow. Yet no framework, no matter how progressive, can fully anticipate what happens when an artist reaches mythic status. Jungkook is no longer just participating in the industry. He is shaping audience behavior itself. This is why some fans frame the situation dramatically, suggesting Bang Si-hyuk is losing control. The phrase spreads easily because it carries tension. But perhaps the truth is less sensational and more profound. Control was never meant to be permanent. It was meant to be transitional. The December story illustrates that transition with startling clarity. There was no visible hand guiding the moment, no official amplification, no coordinated follow-up, and yet the impact rivaled major promotional campaigns. That alone forces agencies everywhere to reconsider their assumptions. If authenticity generates more engagement than strategy, if silence generates more anticipation than saturation, then the industry must evolve or risk becoming irrelevant to its own stars. Fans sense this instinctively. Many comments did not just celebrate Jungkook's appearance, they celebrated his freedom. There was relief in their words, as if they were witnessing an artist finally existing on his own terms. That emotional response is not accidental. It reflects years of collective investment, years of watching Jungkook grow from a teenager into a global figure carrying immense expectations. In that context, a masked selfie becomes symbolic. Covered, yet seen. Quiet, yet overwhelming. Ordinary, yet historic. The question of BTS's future inevitably surfaces here, even if Jungkook never mentioned it. Fans cannot help but wonder whether these small moments are fragments of a larger story forming beneath the surface. Will 2026 mark a reunion shaped less by obligation and more by choice? Will individual identities strengthen the group rather than dilute it? Jungkook's story does not answer these questions. It intensifies them. And perhaps that is its true power. In the modern attention economy, certainty is often less valuable than suspense. Jungkook understands this intuitively. He does not over-explain. He does not clarify. He allows space for imagination. That space is where fandom thrives. For Bang Si-hyuk, watching this unfold must feel like standing at the edge of something both triumphant and uncontrollable. He succeeded in building an artist who no longer needs to be managed in conventional ways. That is the highest achievement of any producer. It is also the moment when letting go becomes unavoidable. The industry may label this as loss of control, but history will likely describe it differently. This is the moment when the student becomes the force. When the system produces something so powerful, it must adapt around it. Jungkook did not announce independence. He did not claim authority. He simply posted a story, and the world listened. As days pass and the digital noise shifts elsewhere, this moment will be archived, referenced, and quietly mythologized. Not because of its scale, but because of its implication. It marks a subtle turning point where power is no longer loud, scheduled, or declared. It is quiet. It is human. It is undeniable. And as long as Jungkook can move millions without saying a word, the question will remain suspended in the air, unanswered, yet impossible to ignore. In a world built on control, what happens when the most powerful artist no longer needs it? That question does not fade with time. It sharpens. Because once the shock settles, once the screenshots stop circulating and timelines move on, the industry is left alone with the implication. Not the moment itself, but what it revealed. A reality where power is no longer announced through press releases and relevance is no longer measured by frequency, but by emotional resonance. Jungkook's quiet appearance did not compete with other news. It erased it. For decades, entertainment economics relied on predictability. Releases followed cycles. Visibility followed schedules. Influence followed investment. What happened that night disrupted that equation. A single, unsponsored, unplanned image outperformed the loudest mechanisms of modern promotion. That is not an accident. That is a signal. And signals like this tend to arrive before major shifts. The most unsettling aspect for industry insiders is not Jungkook's popularity. That has been evident for years. It is the realization that his influence now operates independently of infrastructure. Remove the machinery, remove the strategy, remove the noise, and the effect remains intensified. Even this is the stage very few artists ever reach, where the audience no longer responds to output, but to existence. And this stage, every appearance carries weight, and every absence creates meaning. Fans are no longer waiting for content. They are waiting for presence. That distinction fundamentally alters how power functions between artist and institution. IT also reframes the idea of management. When an artist reaches this level, guidance becomes dialogue rather than direction. Decisions become mutual rather than hierarchical. Control becomes obsolete not because it is resisted, but because it is unnecessary.